Welcome to the Jamal Thomas Show. It's not the morning show. I am testing my mic, so I'm hoping that everything sounds okay. Can you guys give me feedback on that? Are you guys hearing me okay? No issues? Everything sounds great? Or does it sound sucks? And I need to go back to the drawing board. What's happening, Sharice? What's happening, Joanna? What's happening, Peter Frauen? Frauen, I think that's called. Trump is fighting shadows. A bit of an echo. Trump has been fighting shadows for a very long time. All right, how about now? Is it still echoey? Okay, let's try to fix that. Give me 1 second. This is why I'm doing it now. Oh, which one is it? This one. Okay. How about now? Are you guys still getting the echo? Echo better? Echo better? Bit better? Sounds good? Sounds good? Excellent. Excellent. I broke the new mic within 2 minutes of opening the box. I was trying to get it to sit flat because I was trying to get rid of the sound profile. Excellent. Truth, Sean Cooper, no echo, Peter Frauen, popcorn, bit of an empty room sound, but it sounds fine. All right, excellent. And maybe that's because I moved it back further. All right. I'm trying to save money. That's what I'm trying to do. Frauen. Thank you, Frauen. Thank you, Peter. Thank you for that. Frauwein. Okay, Frauwein. Look, I would tell you, my ex, she was Austrian. She spoke German. I butcher. I butcher. But I would try to get it right. Frauwein. At the very least, Peter. I can get that one right. Hope you guys are doing okay. What time is it? It's 2 p.m., 2:30, okay, ish. On the East Coast, I hope you guys are doing all right. I am doing I guess this is not really a morning show. This is not a mid-evening show. I guess you can call it a weekend update. I'm on some of the things that took place over the course of the week. This is not an issue of guess. This will be me going through various stories. I'll see how you guys like it. And if it's something that you guys like, enjoy, we get a good crowd, get good interaction. We will try to make this something that we can do weekly. I have a new light. The new light seems to be doing very well. So the issue is this. When I travel, I moved is too strong. I went to Albania initially to save cash. And I realized that I can continue to save cash if I was abroad. And so I came to Malaysia. When you're traveling from point A to point B, anything that you carry with you is extra weight. So you try to limit the number of clothes, limit the amount of stuff that you effectively take with you. My mic is obscenely heavy, and the light that I have is obscenely heavy. So I got, I call it for my birthday, a new light and a new mic. Both of these things have a much lower profile. Both of these are much lighter. So traveling with them from point A to point B is a hell of a lot easier. So when I go to Indonesia, these will be easier to travel, less weight, less cost, etc. So that is the thought. That is where my mind goes with the stuff. It's like if you're trying to save cash, save cash. But I'm glad you guys are doing all right. This is a more low-key show. This is not me in a suit. I'm not interviewing anybody. This is me just going over stories that took place over the week. And at the end of this, if I still feel up to it, get some chest. The first big story that we have to hit, and I'll probably cut these also, just as their own individual segments. The first big story that I have to hit, it's so absurd that you would think it was a movie. It's not a movie, it's real life. And not all the participants of this seem to acknowledge that it's real life. In my monologue the other day, I pointed out that you don't really punch down. It lowers you to do that. If you are a president of the United States, there's a gravitas built into that faculty, that administration, meaning the very act that you're president of the United States, you're imbued with a certain amount of gravitas because you're effectively representing, or supposedly, the entirety of a country, 330 odd million human beings. Trump doesn't seem to get that, and effectively brings the presidency down to his level, which is appalling to watch, humiliating to watch as an American. The most recent evidence of this, and there are several points of this, the habitual lying being one really big one, but put that to the side. And not even habitual, just comically habitual lying. It's not even good lies. But in this very specific case, this goes beyond that, and it needs a breakdown on its own. So Donald Trump gets into a Twitter beef. You heard that right. The President of the United States gets into a social media Twitter beef with Dmitry Medvedev. Now, Medvedev is not even president of Russia. He's not even prime minister of Russia. And yet the president of the United States is in a Twitter beef. Again, it sounds very weird, whimsical to say. There's a level of ridiculousness built into very act of saying the president is in a Twitter beef. But he's in a Twitter beef and loses that Twitter beef. Loses it. Now, under normal circumstances, Donald Trump can deride many people and they shriek away. And he tends to win those. But the problem is when you're dealing with somebody who A, is not president, B, doesn't have the responsibility of a president to be presidential in the way that Putin has, they can get into the gutter with you, and Dmitry Medvedev is the best at it. Trump loses the Twitter beef. If it stopped there, I wouldn't be doing this video. One second. Okay, good. I'm gonna open this up. Give me 1 second, I'm sorry. Come on. I don't usually do this on the weekends, so I need to set something up. There we are. All right. Again, if it stopped there, no issue, but it didn't stop there. Just to give context, Trump decides, I'm going to take it down from 50 days to 10 days because Ukraine is getting the stuff and beat out of it. The speed of the Russian advance is escalating, accelerating. And so he is screaming from the European Union, hey, do something, screaming from Ukraine, hey, do something, screaming from the neocons, oh my God, hey, do something. So Trump says, okay, fair enough. I'm going to take the 50 days that I gave Russia down to 10. Now, this ultimatum, nobody cared about this ultimatum, fact of the matter. And you even got to the point of Donald Trump admitting himself, well, I don't think they care about the sanctions. No, they don't care about your sanctions. They're pursuing their objectives. Again, either the president is a habitual liar, which has been proven, or the president is not in control of his administration, which I suspect has also been proven, which is one of my other stories that I want to do today. But in both of those cases, you can't trust the president of the United States. So Russia is going to pursue its military objectives. All right. Dmitry Medvedev is ribbing Trump on this. And what Trump decided to do after the 10 days, of course, was going to be secondary sanctions. If you continue to trade with Russia, we're going to hit you with sanctions. Okay, well, this immediately hits upon this notion of sovereignty. And of considering Russia trades with the entirety of the world, that means Trump on some level is going to have to sanction the entirety of the world. Russia, China, India, UAE, Saudi Arabia, etc. Got to do it all, right? If you're going to put 100% sanction or tariffs, as he calls it, on all of these countries, what are these countries going to do? And considering India being one of the main primary countries that buys Russian oil, just like China, and considering that Donald Trump is claiming to be in some kind of negotiation with both, well, that's going to be a bit rich when you decide to put 100% sanctions, tariffs on both, right? What is India going to do? India has effectively said, F off. We're not stopping buying Russian energy just because you're throwing a tantrum. You're not impinging upon our sovereignty as a nation. Not to mention, it would cost India billions of dollars if India did do that, considering the price cut that Russia has given them to buy their oil. So there's that. So what does Trump do? Trump puts out a tweet after being ribbed by Medvedev. He puts out this. Now, again, this is a president. This is not some rando that is having a Twitter beef. This is Trump. I don't care what Russia and India or what India does with Russia. They can take their dead economies down together for all I care. We have done very little business with India. Their tariffs are too high, among the highest in the world. Likewise, Russia and the USA do almost no business together. Let's keep it that way. And tell Medvedev, the failed former president of Russia who thinks he's still president, to watch his words. He's entering into dangerous territory. So you take a Twitter beef and escalate it to the material. That's interesting. Trump, after Medvedev effectively ribs Trump, effectively telling him this. Trump's playing the ultimatum game with Russia, 50 days or 10 days. He should remember two things. Russia isn't Israel or even Iran. Two, each new ultimatum is a threat and a step towards war, not between Russia and Ukraine, but between his own country. Don't go down the Sleepy Joe road. Now, Medvedev is correct here. And I guess a few things. A, why are you continuously sending Witkoff over to Russia if you're not trying to do business with Russia? There's that. Trump is also going to waste Witkoff time, but apparently sending him after all of this. So again, what is the purpose of sending Witkoff over to try to do deals, many of those being business deals, if indeed you don't care about the Russian economy and making deals with the Russian economy? You said keep it that way. That doesn't seem to be what you're doing, in fact. Two, the Russian economy has moved up to like number 4, overtaking Germany because, let's be honest, Trump and the US has effectively gut the European economies, Germany being the strongest of the European economies, gut them based on blowing up Nord Stream pipeline, based on the sanctions, based on the weapons that these countries are effectively buying, and based on the deindustrialization that has happened in Germany because they don't have cheap energy for their businesses to run. The tweet is full of lies. Habitual liars lie. Medvedev's point of you're escalating this to the point of war, not between Ukraine, but between Russia. What he means by that is each new ultimatum that you effectively give is an ultimatum that the Russians are going to ignore. And at some point, that ultimatum will get to the precipice where you have nowhere else to go but kinetic. And Russia will ignore that too. They don't care about your threats. You have no cards. Full stop. They don't care. And even with this new tariff thing that he's effectively talking about, they don't care. In fact, on Telegram, they have countdown clocks. 9, 8, 7, 6, because they, like I, want to see you do it. I want to see you do it. I'm curious. I'm curious by nature. All right, let's keep going. Trump makes another, Dmitry Medvedev, let's go to him first, puts out this tweet in response to Trump's tweet about Trump's threat against me and his personal network, Truth, which he banned from operating in the country. If some of the Russian president, or if words of the former Russian president cause such a nervous reaction in the entire formidable US president, it means that Russia is, quote, right in everything and will continue to go its own way. I guess he's kind of making the point that I'm making. You are not even talking to the president. You have lowered yourself to talk to someone in the president's administration, and you're acting this way. It's weird. And about the, quote, dead economy, unquote, of India and Russia, and, quote, entering dangerous territory, unquote. Well, let him remember his favorite films about The Walking Dead, as well as how dangerous a dead hand that does not exist in nature can be. The dead hand. The dead hand. Now, the dead hand, if you have ever, if you read the 3-Body Problem books, if you know anything about history, this is the perimeter system that effectively senses a nuclear blast on Russian territory that would automatically, it doesn't require a person. Every last person in Russia could be dead in the ground, and they would fire off nuclear missiles at their homicide targets. That's what Medvedev is talking about. The key point that you need to remember, though, is dead hand by definition means retaliation. Russia, unlike the United States, does not have a first strike policy and assumes that they will be hit first before they retaliate. The dead hand is a retaliation. It's an assumption that the United States is going to attack them first. It is an assumption that they would have to retaliate and decimate all of their enemies and effectively in the world in retaliation to the people who effectively attack them. It is not a first strike. Not a first strike. Just want to make that clear. Trump responded to this with this. Again, I want to nail that down. Dead hand is a retaliation, not a first strike. It is an assumption that the United States and Russia will be at war because of Donald Trump's continuous escalation, because he's egomaniac, full of hubris, and doesn't quite get that the United States is not in the 1990s and doesn't get to dictate terms, especially in a war that it provoked and lost. This is Trump's response. Based on highly provocative statements of the former president of Russia. Now, mind you, Trump is the one who said you're going into dangerous territory on a Twitter beef. Twitter beef. It's like you ribbed me too much. You've humiliated me. And so now I'm going to externalize this. He did that, not Medvedev. Let's keep going. Based on the highly provocative statements of former president of Russia, Dmitry Medvedev, who is now deputy chairman of the Security Council of the Russian Federation, I have ordered 2 nuclear submarines to be positioned in appropriate regions. Just in case these foolish and inflammatory statements are more than just that. Words are very important. God, man, if there was a God, it would have struck Trump with lightning after saying that. Let's keep going. Words are very important and can often lead to unintended consequences. I hope this will not be one of these instances. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Again, he's saying this like people care. They don't care about your threats. They don't. But the notion that you as a US president lose a Twitter beef, is humiliated in a Twitter beef, and decide to, again, externalize this by supposedly moving 2 nuclear submarines to appropriate regions is comically stupid. It just is. There's nothing else to say about it. It's comically stupid. And if true, overtly provocative. Now, here's the thing. As I've pointed out before, habitual liars lie. There's nothing in me that believes for a moment that Donald Trump moved nuclear submarines anywhere. Why wouldn't they already be in appropriate regions? What does appropriate regions even mean? That is bizarre, right? So you are taking submarines from wherever they were, which apparently were not in appropriate regions, and move them to appropriate regions. It took you as Donald Trump, sitting like Hitler in the Fuhrer bunker, moving around invisible troops. I don't believe he did any of this. I think this is just Twitter. I could be wrong. He is comically ignorant, but I don't buy it. But the very notion that the president of the United States would say it is frankly outlandish. It's outlandish. A deranged sociopath decides to move nuclear submarines because he loses a Twitter beef. Bizarre. Just utterly and entirely bizarre. Trump followed this up with telling the world that he, Donald Trump, one man in a country that represents 4% of the world population, that he is ready for nuclear war.
Medvedev say to you that made you really mad?
Well, you just have to read what he said. He was talking about nuclear. When you talk about nuclear, we have to be prepared, and we're totally prepared.
What did Medvedev say to you that made you?
So Trump, American president, is prepared for nuclear war. Trump is prepared for nuclear war. And as an indication of that, he's moving 2 nuclear subs from whatever position they were in that apparently weren't appropriate to newly appropriate positions. Don't take, look, this is not me being provocative. This is your president saying he's ready for nuclear war. Let that sink in for the moment. The president of the United States is announcing to the world that he's prepared for nuclear war. What is that preparation? What is that preparation? Is he just feeling prepared? Have they refurbished a bomb shelter with gold toilets? Have they put in a golden escalator for them to get down to the bomb shelter? And what about everybody else? Should everybody else get prepared? And how should they get prepared? When my mom was in school, they used to have nuclear drills. And in the drills, they used to get under a wooden desk in preparation for nuclear war. I get the sense that that's the level of preparation that Trump is. There's a wooden desk somewhere that he is figuratively or actually will get under when nuclear bombs fall. That's how comically ridiculous I think the president of the United States is. He's deranged. There is no preparation for nuclear war. It's death, screaming, and blood. That's all it is. That's your preparation. Even if you have a bomb shelter, is that really preparation? I love preppers. Canadian prepper, love the guy. He's fantastic. But is there a prep for that? Yeah, you have a bomb shelter. How long are you going to stay in that bomb shelter? How long do you need to stay in that bomb shelter? And what happens when you come out of that bomb shelter? What is the world that you're going into? Like, this just seems like a hellscape. It's astonishing to me that Donald Trump is effectively prepared to end the world, because that is effectively what will take place. And I hate to break this to Donald Trump, but Russia has more nuclear subs with better missiles than the United States does. It's just death. There is no preparation. Maybe you have a bomb shelter. When you come up, you're not the president anymore. And I would wager to you, they would string you up on a flagpole, whoever's left over, who finds you after that, considering you are the one who's sitting here screaming about preparations for nuclear war. Again, a dead hand is response. The US has a first strike policy. Russia doesn't, or at the very least, it's more complicated. But they don't have a first strike policy. Putin has over and over again assumed that Russia would get hit first. The notion that the president of the United States is effectively saying he's ready to end the world is outrageous. Outrageous. Completely outrageous. The tweet was stupid enough. To double down on it when asked about it is even worse. Russia, or let's say one of the lawmakers, responded to this, effectively pointing out what I just said. Russian lawmaker Viktor Vodolatsky responded to President Donald Trump's decision to move two nuclear submarines to, quote, appropriate regions, unquote, near Russia, saying that Moscow can count on far more submarines than Washington. Quote, there are significantly more of our nuclear submarines in the world's oceans, and they have the strongest, most powerful weapons, unquote, he said. He is first deputy chairman of the State Duma Committee of Commonwealth for Independent States Affairs. I wonder if he can even remember all of that on his own without looking at his lapel. My point is, this is silly. This is silly. You lose a Twitter beef, call it a day. You shouldn't be in Twitter beefs at all. You're the president of the United States. And frankly, you're dragging down the office. And I get we have some sociopaths in that office, but Donald Trump is one of the most degenerate that I have come across. Yes, Joe Biden might have initiated that war in Israel and supported that war in Israel in regards to the genocide. Joe Biden, yes, initiated. But at the very least was in a long line. And the reason I'm struggling with the term initiate is because this is US policy. It's not one individual president. You put somebody in that office and they effectively are doing very similar things in regards to foreign policy. Trump can scream, this is Joe Biden's war all he wants. It's his war now. He could have walked. He did not. He is continuing to support the war. It's his war. I'm trying to point out that each ultimatum that Donald Trump throws out, each nonsense proposal where he's acting like Joe Biden, will come to the same ends as Joe Biden. Failure. And at some point, you're going to get roped into a decision that you're going to have to make to either walk and take your big zero where you can't save face, or escalate to something more kinetic. That is the choice that Trump is ultimately faced with. He's fence-sitting, but ultimately he has no power over the Russian government. He has no power over them enacting their will in a physical matter reality sense. I would say probably the most direct physical matter reality sense of war. And so you have one or two choices. Either you acknowledge, I have no power over the Russians. I may call myself the president and have this huge amount of hubris when I look in the mirror that is completely undeserved. Or I'm calling it a day. I'm walking. This is not my war. Or you accept the Russian terms, which is going to be very difficult for a US president to do. It's that. So, comically incompetent, terrifying that power to end the world is imbued in the hands of this child. But this is the world to which we are confronted with. There is that. Pancho Zorch winning. Winning. Yes, winning as he fails on all accounts. As he fails on all accounts. I'm going to add this in. If you guys dig this content, you find yourself coming back to this channel often, you want to support this content, you can do so with Patreon, Super Chats, Buy Me a Coffee, memberships, all of those things help support this content. These shows are often demonetized because of the subject matter to which we engage. When I say you support the content, you support this content. I want to go to the next one. Pursuant to this idea of winning, which was dead on, India, as I pointed out, has effectively told Trump F off. India's like, we're not buying your oil, dude. I mean, you're not changing our policy. You're not changing our policy. There were some reports that came out that said India was no longer buying Russian oil. Those reports were premature. Those reports were wrong. India, in this grand assertion of sovereignty, has effectively said India will buy Russian oil despite Trump's threats, officials say. I will tell you this. There are times that you may believe you have some level of power or clout, but you don't want to risk it. You don't want to risk it. Do you remember I used to use the term from Game of Thrones, power is a shadow on the wall? And the reason why, God, I love that quote, I love the way people use the language, is because people respond to what they think exists. And if they think you have power, social, political, whatever that leverage is, which is effectively what power is, if they think you have it, they will respond to it, even if it's just in their minds. So I may respond to you as a power because I think you have power. Whether you do or not is irrelevant to the point. It's what I think. It's why psyops are so very important in regards to warfare. Same thing with lawyers. Lawyers sometimes will not challenge cases because they believe they may lose those cases, in which case it would unravel whatever they have already in the bank. Meaning, the moment that you throw your chips on the table, you're stuck with a result and you have to pony up. Either you have the power to do it or you don't. And if the power gets challenged and you don't have the ability to effectuate what you were insinuating that you could do, power lost. And it's lost because everybody can see you don't actually have it. Meaning you didn't have the chips that they thought you had. You weren't as rich as people thought you were. You didn't have the capabilities, the leverage that people thought you may have had at your disposal because you've just been found out. You decided to give a major ultimatum to the world powers, India, China, Saudi Arabia, etc. Okay, that is you putting your leverage on the table about which you expect these countries to respond in a particular way. India just told you to F off. China will tell you to F off. I'm super curious what Saudi Arabia does. And I'm super curious to see what happens when you have to go through with putting 100% sanctions on all of these other countries that you're supposedly making deals with. That is going to be fascinating. And as I've told you, I am pro-accelerant in this. The idea that 4% of the globe decides to put tariffs on the entirety of the world for shits and giggles is absurd. It's one thing if you try to protect an industry. It's another thing when you're trying to exert will that is different. America, nobody is stealing from America, period. You go to a country and you buy something from them, and then you scream that because you have a free hand of your wallet to buy stuff, that they are somehow robbing you. For one, the United States is one of the largest economies in the world, if not the largest economy. China may be number 2 or China may be number 1 on any random day. So by definition, there's going to be a trade imbalance between other countries just because you have a larger wallet that you exert when you're buying stuff, and you tend to buy stuff a lot. I mean, for God's sake, you have $36 trillion in debt. That money has to go somewhere. It's not just wars. So there's that. 2, countries like China, you made a deal, meaning the United States, that you wanted to make more and more profit. Okay, that was your choice. You decided we can fire American workers and we can ship those jobs overseas and we can pay those people less. That was a choice. That was policy. That wasn't countries taking advantage of you. That was the oligarchs of your country deciding we can make more profit. We can pay the political space to get rid of any kind of, let's say, hindrance to those products coming back into the country. Bob, who was making $20 an hour, is now fired. Jose is now fired. Jerome is now fired. Pam is now fired, etc. Down the list. And we're going to ship those jobs over to China, to Philippines, to India, to Mexico, etc. And whereas they were making $5 an hour, we're now going to pay them $6. Whereas they were making $2 an hour, we will pay them $5. They would be very appreciative of that. They would say, hey, this is great. I'm making more money. And the company, who at one point was paying $20 an hour for their workers, $30 an hour for their workers, can now accept $17, $27, whatever that number is, as profit. That was a choice. Nobody forced them to do that, short of the bias that's in our system for maximizing profit. I'm trying to nail that down because I want to make that very clear that nobody is stealing from you. From a standpoint of China, they said, hey, we've made more money. We can collect taxes on this. Some people are going to get rich. There will be certain bubbles, fair enough. But we're going to harness the capitalistic system to build roads, bridges. We're going to do all these land projects. We're going to mold the earth in regards to dams. We're going to build high-speed rail all through the country. We're going to have these huge towers. We're going to send things into space. We're going to put bases on the moon. This is what we're going to do without money. We're going to raise 800 billion people out of poverty. That is what we, as a country, is going to decide to do with our cash. In America, we say, hey, look at all the money we got. We're going to buy new boats. We're going to buy new houses. We're going to buy new mansions. We're going to do that stuff. We're going to do self-enriching items because we made this. We pulled ourselves by our own bootstraps, rugged individualist selves that we are. And that's what we're going to use the money for. And then Trump comes along and says, hey, China's looking pretty sexy. How did they do that? It's the difference in whether you use the money for your oligarchs or whether you use the money for your own economies. That's the difference. China decided to use it for its country. We decided to give it to oligarchs who decided to use it for themselves. The idea that you don't acknowledge your oligarchs, turn around and point to China or some of these other countries and say, you've been taken from us, is obnoxious and ahistorical, frankly. It's astonishing. Absolutely astonishing. India has decided to rib Trump on this and has effectively decided to just make fun of him. At the very least, Indian media, this woman has made a video, a takedown of Trump. Because what Donald Trump has been doing has been going around the globe and bullying countries to nominate him for the Nobel Peace Prize. You should fall out your chair right there, just on the very notion of it. The man who is responsible in large part for this starvation of millions is asking to give him the Nobel Peace Prize. That's what Trump's doing. Trump is paying for that. We are paying for that with our tax dollars. Trump is starving human beings and then is trying to act as if that's not happening by sending Witkoff or having these, making these arguments of, well, if you feed babies, then you're helping Hamas. That same person with blood all over his hands and blood dropping out of his mouth, who's been sitting across from Netanyahu, who also nominated him, which again, if there was a God, lightning bolts would be flying at that moment, nominated him for the Nobel Peace Prize. He's been pushing countries, Cambodia being one of them. She has pointed out and done a fantastic takedown that I want to play because it is funny as all get out.
So much could have been avoided. The First World War, the Second World War, the nuclear arms race, the Cold War. Trump could have prevented all of it. After all, his surname is Ceasefire. We know that all politicians are full of themselves. They can be arrogant and boastful. But Trump is one step ahead. He is shamelessly full of himself. As a species, we should be more thankful to Trump. Thanks to his negotiations with God, the sun rises every day. Thanks to his mediation, ships can sail on the ocean. If not for him, gravity would not exist. Give us a break. But jokes aside, there are too many reasons to disqualify Trump. You've got casual sexism. You've got sexual assault allegations. You've got casual racism. You've got Islamophobia. And you've got actual warmongering. Take your pick. There are two kinds of leaders in this world. One who leave the world a better place, the other who leave it worse than they found it, and Trump is clearly in category 2.
Trump is clearly category 2, who leave the world worse than they found it. I cannot disagree with anything that woman said. I love her accent, by the way. God, I love that accent. In Malaysia, you have a huge population of India, Malaysian, very few African every now and then. And so the accent, but I love the accent. I love that accent. She's right. She is completely and entirely correct. Trump is number 2. Trump is number 2. So no, if they give Donald Trump, this degenerate sociopath, who, as she put it, is leaving the world a worse place, warmongering, I personally think he's on the Epstein list. In fact, he is on the Epstein list. Donald Trump has now acknowledged that the Epstein list exists, but, it was made by Joe Biden, so, it has to be bad. This is after he said it didn't exist. So there's that. If they eat, like the very fact that they would nominate somebody like Trump for the Nobel Peace Prize, it's almost an acknowledgement that the prize shouldn't even exist. Utter, entirely absurdity. India is right. Not only are they not going to take a lesson from Trump, I am super curious on seeing the 100% tariffs that they put on India. That's assuming Taco Trump even goes through with it. I think in this case, he almost has to, right? I mean, you've told the world that you're going to pass 100% sanctions on all of these countries. How do you back away? How do you do it? Again, I'm super curious. And when it reverberates back on the American public, I've just saw some of the inflation numbers. They are horrendous. And they will only get worse. So we will see. We will see. And it's just super interesting to me. Super interesting. I'll wager you, Jamal, that, what is this? That Malaysia will fold. Malaysia will fold. Malaysia might fold. Maybe. I don't think India will. Nor do I think China will. I mean, look, part of my reasoning for this has to do with the issue of sovereignty. I mean, think back to where India was taken over by the Brits. Do they have something in their culture that is repelled by this idea of another country originating from the Brits, turning around and usurping their sovereignty, whether it's military or whether it's economic? I think they would take issue with that. Same thing with China. I don't think China is going to take a lesson from the US on anything, let alone this idea of, we don't want you to trade with the Russians. They're going to tell you to go the F away, which is what India is doing by continuing to use Russian oil. So there's that. So we'll see. Malaysia might. The Asian countries shouldn't, but you're right, they might. We'll see. We will see. Thank you, Jamal, for the information. Well, thank you, Jim Spencer. I appreciate that. You help make the show what it is. You help the show keep ticking along. Thank you for that. The other story I want to hit, whereas I'm close these, I'm close this. This gets confusing. There's so many of these things. This, let's keep that one up. Close this. So when Michael Maloof was on the show, Michael made a point that I so disagreed with that I'm coming around to thinking that he might on some level be right, but I'm not certain yet. Maloof made a point in saying that Trump is being misinformed, that Trump doesn't read. The cartoon coloring books that Tulsi Gabbard was supposed to do for him haven't necessarily come out yet, so he haven't been able to look up pop-up pictures, and that the people who are around him are effectively feeding him information that has no correlation with reality. Now, I got to be honest with you, I don't care. A, I don't even know if that's true. B, even if it is true, I don't care. Because you pick those people. Like, it wasn't like, there was some kind of election or vote tally where the public said, hey, let's choose these people who we're going to put around Donald Trump, and he stuck with these people. Donald Trump chose the people who he decided to bring around him. If Trump decided to bring neocons around him, then those are the people who Donald Trump chose. So I hope you get my point. Whether Trump is being misinformed or not, Trump was president in the first presidential administration. This was an argument that people made in the first administration that John Bolton or Pompeo or some of these other goofballs were effectively feeding him this misinformation. Okay, let's say I let you get away with that excuse once. If you do the same thing, then you are doing it because you want to do it. You can't use that excuse twice. Donald Trump chose who he wanted around him and to feed him information about the world. If you choose neocons to put around you, then the information that you're fed is information on some level that you chose, considering you chose those people. I hope you get my point. Like if the United States picked Trump for the presidency, okay, the US picked Trump. That's the guy who they wanted. Can't turn around and say, oh my God, he's so bad. You chose him. You chose him. I'm pointing out that Trump chose the people who were around him. All right. It is possible that he is misinformed because he is comically incompetent. And comically incompetent people are easily misinformed. That's assuming that he doesn't want to be misinformed in a particular bias or a particular direction anyway. I hope you get my point. It's no excuse if he's being misinformed. He chose the people who are misinforming him. That's after a first term where he supposedly was also misinformed. Trump comes out with this statement on, of course, Truth Social, which immediately gets transposed to Twitter. And what he's saying here is so outlandish, you have to almost think maybe he is being just given ludicrous information that is informing his point of view. And just to be clear what I mean by that, if you think, because this was something J.D. Vance said that was, again, didn't make sense. When J.D. Vance came out, he says, well, the Russians believe they're winning, and so they're asking for things that we don't think. That the situation on the ground is indicative of them getting. Basically, yeah, sure, they're moving, but they're not moving in the degree that they think they are. And they're losing more people, etc. Yeah, no, no, nothing backs that up. Even Mediazona doesn't back that up. Russia might have lost maybe 150,000 people at most, is what I would put it, based on the reports that are coming out and the disparity between the number of Ukrainians that are racking up cemeteries versus the number of Russians. But Trump comes out and says this: I've just been informed that almost 20,000 Russians died this month. Are you serious? Are you serious right now? That makes no sense. I'm sorry, that makes no sense. There's nothing that backs it up. I would love to see the intelligence that Donald Trump is getting. Some rando Ukrainian that says, hey man, it's 20,000. It makes no sense. And him believing it, again, gets across the whole incompetence thing. What are you looking at to give you that number? What are you looking at? And it's even comically absurd that he believes it, depending upon the source that he's getting it from. Whether that's people who are around him, whether that's some rando Ukrainian. Zelensky wouldn't be out there screaming to overthrow Putin if that was true. And if that is true, then why do you need the United States? Right? If you're doing that well, if you're balling out that much, you have a Ukrainian military. I mean, just logically for the moment. Russia started off with like 150,000 troops. They were able to take 20% territory. They were able to hold off a force 3 times their size with 150,000 troops. All right, bake that in. Right now, you have hundreds of thousands of Ukrainians that are trying to escape. You have Russia that has nearly 1 million-man military, which I think is like 2 or 3 times the size of the Ukrainian military, with an additional military in the background waiting to come in, I think like 300,000 men. How do you come up with numbers like this when they were able to hold their own, when they were in a deficit 3-1, and now they're not just even, they are surpassing the Ukrainian military in spades. They are gaining more and more ground in this kind of lava flow type attack, where they are doing that in order to cut down on the casualties that they may be taking, as opposed to doing this kind of large maneuver warfare. I'm trying to make the point of saying this doesn't even logically sound correct. If you look at what's taking place on the battlefield and you see Ukrainian losing more and more ground, Now, they seem to be living on this myth, this hopium, that, yeah, Russia may be taking more territory, and yeah, Russia's eventually going to take it, but man, look at all the people that they lost in doing it, as if that's some kind of a background win, that they lost a huge number of people in order to accomplish their military objectives. I'm pointing out losing 100,000 of your people is massive. Yes, agreed. But that's over the course of the entire war, not 20,000 in 1 month. That is a ludicrous number. That is just a ludicrous number. But say for the moment Trump believes that. Say he believes it. Would that affect your disposition and your point of view when you're engaging another leader? Maybe. Like if you're sending Witkoff over and say, hey, you lost 20,000 men, they're going to laugh at you. They're going to laugh at you. Now, the truth of the matter is, who knows what Witkoff is telling Donald Trump? Who knows? No clue. But they will laugh at you if you say they've lost 20,000 people over the course of a month. And if that is your reality that you're effectively going with, like, hey, you lost this many people this month, you may lose 20,000 more next month. Again, they're going to laugh at you. You're working on two different planes of reality. In one case, they know the actual numbers because it's the Russian military. In your case, you are on cloud nine somewhere. You're in the boonies. It's almost like you're doped up on some drug that has completely ripped you away from the real world phenomena that all of these other people are effectively engaged in. It's bizarre. But if Donald Trump, who again, I think is competently incompetent, is told that by somebody, he may actually believe it, especially if Tulsi Gabbard hasn't put in a different number in the coloring book somewhere. He may believe it. Can you guys hear me? Hello, hello, hello. Let me make sure. Mic check, mic check. It says I lost connection to my mic. I want to make sure what's going on. Okay, still connected. Roll's good. Let's keep it moving. My point is basic. He may believe that, and that may affect behavior. I have pointed out that you may need to get to the point in this war where it becomes so brimmingly clear that Ukraine's military is going to collapse, that this thought of, well, Russians want something that we're not going to give them because #reasons will fade away, especially if you get to the point where Kiev is about to fall, Odessa is about to go into the Russian hands, etc. That all may fade away. But right now, Trump actually may believe this. Let's keep going. Come on, there we are. I've just been informed that almost 20,000 Russian soldiers died this month in a ridiculous war in Ukraine. Russia's lost 112,000 soldiers since the beginning of the year. Again, that is a farcical number. Like that number. Look, if you said they lost that many over the course of the entirety of the war, I would say yes. I would say yes. But 6 months, 8 months? You're out of your mind. You're out of your mind. And you have to think, who is telling Trump this? War with Ukraine lost 112,500 soldiers since the beginning of the year. That's a lot of unnecessary deaths. Ukraine, however, has also suffered greatly. They have lost approximately 8,000 soldiers since January 1st, 2025. Just to get this straight, Trump is saying with a straight face, that Russia has lost 112,000 soldiers over the course of the year, but Ukraine has lost only 8,000. That's astonishing. That's astonishing. Russia has tried to deliver more troops than the 8,000 this year alone to Ukraine that they have decided that they couldn't accept because they didn't want to pay benefits. That's astonishing. That is astonishing. More astonishing that he would even believe it. Let's keep going. Let's go through this tweet. In fact, we'll start from the beginning. Come on. Damn it. Come on. There we are. Let's start from the beginning. I've just been informed. I'm so curious as to who informed him of this. I've just been informed that almost 20,000 Russian soldiers have died this month in a ridiculous war with Ukraine. Russia's lost 112,500 soldiers since the beginning of the year. That's a lot of unnecessary deaths. Ukraine, however, has also suffered greatly. They've lost approximately 8,000 soldiers since January 1st, 2025, and that number does not include the missing. Ukraine has also lost civilians, but in smaller numbers, as Russian rockets crash into Kiev and other Ukrainian locales. This is a war that should have never happened. This is Biden's war, not Trump's. I'm just here to stop it. Well, I will tell you, losing track of reality is not the way to stop a war. And I will tell you this also. In the very beginning, when Donald Trump took office and they started to make legitimate arguments, NATO expansion has been a problem. This idea of pushing to the border of Russia, these things are obviously something that is beyond the pale. And I said, okay, that's great. Trump is given reality, because the only way you can really stop a war is reality. The way you start it often is by destroying and denying reality. When I see lying or just comically insane numbers, I think this is not a way to stop a war. I give you another example, Iran and Israel. When Donald Trump is negotiating with Iran and Trump can't seem to get reality right, he goes and shakes hands with a literal head chopper that declared himself president of Syria. The man is a literal terrorist. We even had him on our terrorist watch list where we had a $10 million bounty on his head. Then he goes to Iran, who hasn't invaded anybody, and says, you guys are supporting terror. Now, they would say we are supporting resistance to Israeli occupation, a colony of squatters who just murdered like 100,000 people and is starving millions. But okay, if you want to call them terrorists, fair enough. But the idea that you shook hands with a terrorist while standing on the stage calling them terrorists is outrageous. It's bizarre to call it, to say least. Trump could never come up with a credible negotiation and was negotiating from a position where he was effectively asking them to do something that they already told him that they wouldn't do. So not only can you not get your negotiations straight, not only are you escalating your negotiations, you didn't even write anything down, with the exception of one time, of what you indeed wanted, to which they had already told you in the beginning that that's not something they're going to do. They're not giving up their sovereignty to you. And in the middle of negotiations, you attack Iran. Now, the point that I was making is this argument that they were trying to build nuclear weapons was always all nonsense. At the very least, if Iran wanted to build a nuclear weapon, they could have built it over the last 20 years that Israel has been screaming that that's what they were trying to do. And considering that Israel has nukes that Trump didn't want to bring up, even though the United States government knows about, and policy and law dictates the way we're supposed to engage Israel, that we just completely blow off. Again, all of this is rather outrageous. It's insane, right? It's a funhouse, mirror reality. But that's kind of my point. If you're trying to start and provoke a war, that is what you do. And I'm saying this idea that Donald Trump is claiming that he's trying to stop a war by coming up with these farcical figures that even if he were to sit there and think for a moment, doesn't even sound real. They sound cartoonish. This doesn't sound like somebody who's trying to stop a war. I'm just pointing it out. It sounds like somebody who's trying to maintain American primacy and is trying to do so from a position of strength in a war that he has obviously lost. You can't say it's Joe Biden's war. You're 8 months in. This is your war. You're giving them weapons. You're making deals with the European Union to give them weapons. This is your war. Just to be very clear, Trump's war. You can say Joe Biden started it. I would say the overthrow of the Ukraine, it made it, that was under Barack Obama, that made it almost a fixed quantity to happen. Can't say it's Joe Biden's war. This war belongs to Donald Trump. Full stop. There's another fascinating story that's out. 2 British officers were caught, mercenaries. You can't even really call them mercenaries. They were effectively working for the British government. They were in the Ukraine camp. They apparently had documents and everything else. These 2 guys, solemn looking, because they're effectively caught by the Russians and they know they're going to be prosecuted for it. Britain was trying to claim that they weren't working with the Brits. Russia made it clear that they were, presented evidence. Then the Brits said they were tourists and they want their tourists back. And of course, Russia said they were going to be prosecuted. They were literally in multiple Ukrainian military bases. And the Brits are trying to make the argument that they were tourists. That is just fantastic. Right here. Russia captures British officers in Nikolaev. During Spetsnaz covert operation at Nikolaev Oblast of Ukraine, multiple officers of the British forces were captured and taken into Russian captivity. The operation, deep behind enemy lines, was centered on Ukrainian command posts in I think this is Ochekov, on the coast of Nikolaev Oblast. Spetsnaz troops landed on the beach late at night and soon penetrated the command post. There, several high-ranking British officers were taken prisoner. Now, this includes Colonel Edward Blake, a senior officer in MI6 Psychological Operations Unit, Lieutenant Colonel Richard Carroll of British Defense Department. These were British officers caught in Ukraine. There's supposedly another that was caught, but that guy hasn't necessarily been outed yet. That's not good. That's not good. Now, truth of the matter is, of course, the French, the Brits, the Americans are in Ukraine in operations, not just mercenaries, in operations. The Russians don't want to say this because the moment that you say this and you air this, you're stuck with a problem. You are supposed to be adjunct to this war, not a part of this war. When the reality of it is, they are obviously directly a part of this war, involved in operations in Russia. These guys were caught. They're probably going to be tried as terrorists. Britain has asked for them back. Good luck on getting them back. I have no idea if they are. I strongly suspect they will not. They will get prosecuted. Britain has asked for trade. Russia has effectively said, well, no, these guys are carrying terrorist operations out in this country. No, no, nope, 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 nope. So those guys are going to have a hard day. Those guys are going to have a hard day. Let's go to the chat for a bit. Right here. King of England, what is this? King of England was directly behind Donald at the Pope's funeral. Was he? Was he? Was he? Four from home. Jonathan, I don't know what that means. Tony, 2 down and a massive 75,000 British armed forces to go. See, I don't think Russia would acknowledge that until it was something where they clearly invaded the country in large military matters. I mean, look, let's be honest. Russia doesn't necessarily want to get into a direct conflict with NATO. Putin has done seemingly everything in his power to avoid it. So it's one thing to say, hey, these 2 British mercenaries are working with the British government, and this is an anomaly, even if it's not an anomaly. It's another thing to say Britain is invaded. That's different. Those are different, legislative, or let's say political matters to effectively deal with. James Bond got jailed. Yeah, James Bond got jailed. James Bond got jailed. And James Bond will be held up on terrorist charges for getting caught. There's that. There's that. What is this? Oh, and another CEO was whacked. Yes. Yes. Yeah. She said, check my brain. But apparently one of the people he killed was like, I don't know if she was a CEO, but she was definitely high up in the company. Yeah. The guy in New York, I believe. The guy in New York. And let's go to one last story that I want to get to before closing for today and getting in some chess. Ghislaine Maxwell. Ghislaine Maxwell. As you remember, Donald Trump, because he was so harassed, because everybody at this point kind of accepts that Donald Trump's name is on the Epstein list, Trump has been all over the place on this list. At one point before getting elected, I'm going to release it. Then getting elected, apparently have all of these FBI agents try to take his name out of it. Then claiming that there is no list. Then claiming that there is a list, but the list is coming from Joe Biden, Comey, Clinton, Obama, etc. And now he's back to there actually is a list. Now he's back to there actually is a list. But he doesn't want to release it because he doesn't want people to get hurt. And let's be honest, his name is on that list.
The people associated, first of all, assume that shouldn't be hurt.
Yeah.
And I would assume that was why he was there. I want to release everything. I just don't want people to get hurt. You can't have people associated. First of all, the files were run by some very bad people and very sick people like Comey and Lisa, the whole group, all those people in that office, they ran those files for 4 years. And if they were going to use the files, they would have used it before my election, because unless they're stupid, which to a certain extent they are stupid.
You're saying they would have released the information.
Well, they had the
before the
files. They
election.
control the files.
Yes.
I didn't control the files. They control the files for 4 years. So if they had something, they would have released it before the election, because they are not geniuses, but they're evil.
Right.
Oh, that's funny. Donald Trump calling somebody else evil, sociopath that he is. That is a stupid argument. That is a stupid argument. And I'll tell you why that's a stupid argument. Russia has nukes. Other countries have nukes. But nobody, with the exception of the United States, has used those nukes. And the reason is because of mutually assured destruction. Meaning the United States could use nukes against Japan because Japan didn't have nukes to retaliate with those nukes. And the fact of the matter is, the firebombings, from my understanding, was even worse than the nukes just because it was the number of people that were being killed. But that's besides the point. I'm trying to point out that, yes, the Democratic Party had access to those files. Joe Biden could have released those files. But how many Democrats were in those files? And if the Democratic Party turned around and released those files, would it have damaged elements of the Democratic Party when you found out that Bill Clinton, Bill Richardson, Dershowitz, et cetera, all of these people, I don't know where Dershowitz is still a Democrat, but you can imagine that Epstein didn't just associate with Republicans, he also associated with Democrats. He was equal opportunity. The issue was leverage. And of course, there are going to be times that Democrats get in office that you want leverage, and there will be times that Republicans get in office where you also want leverage. So the idea that, well, Joe Biden didn't release it, so there's nothing damaging to me is nonsense, just nonsense. It's very possible that Joe Biden didn't release the files because he could see the list of people who were Democratic supporters, Democratic donors, Democrats in regards to politicians that were on those files. And that putting the file out in no way would have been a benefit to Joe Biden, considering the blowback that would have taken place when he also released those files on Democrats. Meaning, how do you turn around and release Epstein files where Donald Trump is the only one? And does the public accept that? Democrats would. But of course, they're going to be screaming, where are the other Johns? Are you telling me that Donald Trump was the only John? What about all of the meetings with Bill Clinton? It's that. It's that. So Trump, ironically, making an argument that Democrats are stupid because they didn't release it, because if they would have released it, it would have hurt him, misses the point that Epstein was also friends with Democrats. I think the issue that he's looking at, or the word that he's looking for, let's say the sentence, is mutually assured destruction. I can't release these because it damages us every bit as much as it damages Trump. I think that's the term that he's looking for. Fast forward, Trump decides, after so much pressure has been applied to him, after weeks of people effectively believing he's a pedophile and protecting other pedophiles, decides to have a conversation with Ghislaine Maxwell. And not just have a conversation with her, he sends, it's not Bondi, but Bondi sends somebody down in order to have a conversation with Ghislaine Maxwell. And then he talk, 100 names or something like that she gives after X number of hours that they have conversations. And then this comes out, which was infinitely predictable. Infinitely predictable. Epstein accomplished move to minimum security prison camp. Now, Trump has brought up a potential pardon for Ghislaine, basically saying, look, I have the power to do it. I don't know if I'm going to do it. But as we pointed out, or as I pointed out, what did she get for that pardon? And is the thing that she get for that pardon is that Donald Trump's name is not on any list. It had nothing to do with anything. And it's a saint and treats women very well. And any lie that is said about him has been false, and that he should be held up for the Nobel Peace Prize, and that he is somewhere along the lines of Jesus. Lord Jesus, just get me out of this prison. Ghislaine Maxwell, the convicted partner of disgraced late financier, sex offender Jeffrey Epstein, has been moved from a low security prison in Florida to a new facility in Texas. The abrupt transfer follows meetings between Maxwell, who is serving a 20-year prison sentence for sex trafficking, and Deputy U.S. Attorney Todd Blanche. The details of the meetings have not been made public. The move was officially confirmed by U.S. Federal Bureau of Prisons on Friday, with the agency providing no explanation for the decision. Quote, we can confirm that Ghislaine Maxwell is in custody in the Federal Bureau of Prisons in the federal prison camp Byron in Byron, Texas, the BOP said in a statement. The development comes amid rumors that Epstein's accomplice could ultimately be given a pardon by U.S. President Donald Trump. Speaking to Newsmax on Friday, however, Trump claimed that the matter has not been raised officially. Quote, I'm allowed to do it, but nobody asked me to do it. I know nothing about it or nothing about this case, Trump said. When asked about the nature of the recent questioning of Maxwell, the U.S. president suggested Blanche, quote, just wants to make sure that innocent people are not hurt, unquote. See, therein lies the rub, and therein lies the problem. If you, as president of the United States, who people believe you're a pedophile, you're on the list, and you don't want to release that list because ultimately you will be exposed as a pedophile, protecting other pedophiles. When you get the woman who is getting women for that pedophile, in what many believe is an influence operation pushed by Mossad, maybe the CIA, who knows? But at the very least, an influence operation where you can get evidence on various political figures, media figures, whatever, because of their sexual proclivity for children. And they believe you're on that list because you've been friends with Epstein for decades. If you give her a pardon, that doesn't help your case. She can go out there and sing soprano your praises on how fantastic you are as a human being, especially towards women. And she can sing multiple other names that may or may not be true. But the fact that you're president, they believe you're on the list, and you're giving a pardon. What it comes across as you're paying her not to implicate you on the list, which means that anything that she says about you diminishes in value because you effectively paid her off with a pardon. Therein lies the rub. And by the way, the same thing is true with moving her to a low security prison. Whether you give her a pardon, whether you move her to a low security prison, whether you have back channel deals with the lawyer saying, look, in 3 years when I leave office, this pardon is yours because at this point I lose all, there's no consequences that could be applied to me to give you this pardon. Just don't bring my name up. All of those things is effectively paying off a witness using something other than money. She wants to get out of prison. You have the capability of getting her out of prison, whether now or in 3 years. Deal made. What she says, short of, without bringing your name up, loses credibility. You effectively paid her off to say it. Just saying, right? You disagree with me? How do you disagree with me? She wants to get out of jail. Nobody wants to be in jail. She's in jail for 20 years. A maximum security prison. Who knows how she's being treated in that prison, considering pedophiles? You move her to a low security prison. Okay, that's a payoff in and of itself. What happens in 3 years? Does she get a pardon? What happens now? Does she get a pardon? Habitual liars lie. And with a woman that you gave a pardon to turn around and say, yes, Donald Trump also was a pedophile. Hope you get my point. Hope you get my point. Oh, we have somebody else. Excellent. Raphael, I'll just say, old man. What is the last word? Can't see it from here. Old man Asiano. I think that's what that said. I believe it would be best if Russia replaced Putin with another leader. Putin is too much of a cosmopolitan philosopher and too nice, not a warrior. I disagree. I disagree. There's a reason that Putin has an 80% approval rating. There's a reason for it. Another leader might have had us in war with NATO right now, or Russia with NATO right now. That would be colossally bad. I would agree with you. In 2014, his response was too slow. Fair enough. But I disagree about it now. Look, the reality of it is you are working between the lines. And between those lines is, I don't want to start a war and be responsible to start a larger war that could go nuclear. By the same token, I need to defend the integrity of the Russian state. If you think, when Yeltsin was in office, Yeltsin gave up the goose, meaning he was a colossal fuck up. And when Putin gets in office, he has to recobble together the integrity and the strength of the Russian state, which he did, by the way. When you're sending a Reznik missile hit, when you see the confidence that he's exuding, that's not because he's failing. That's because something is succeeding in the way he's effectively functioning and acting. If you look at the war effort itself, they're not losing. They might have lost 100,000 men over the entirety of a war, but this is a real war that they started off at a severe disadvantage in regards to manpower. That's not a failure. You don't have all of these people joining the Russian military because they think they're going to die. You have it because they think they're going to live. And this is some allegory to the Great Patriotic War. I hope you get my point. This is not somebody who's failing. This is somebody who's succeeding. If you want to talk about Syria, that gets complicated because I got to be honest, there's so many different stories about what happened to Syria. I have no idea which one is true. If you want to talk about assisting Iran, again, this goes back to previous policy where Iran was isolated, and where I bring up when the Ukrainian war started, that the context of the world changed. And part of my reason for saying that is because countries like Iran, North Korea were no longer isolated. They were brought into a fold, especially including with China. So yeah, I disagree. Nobody's perfect. So there's no getting a perfect person, but getting somebody who's a hothead that may end the world, it's not a positive development. I don't buy that, Raphael. I don't buy it. I don't buy it. I don't buy it. I don't buy it. I don't know domestic policy in Russia, so I can't give any points of view on that. Usually when we're looking at this stuff, we're looking at the stuff from external and how the stuff functions on the geopolitical stage. But from the standpoint of defending the integrity of his nation, he's done a good job. He's done a good job. All right. By the way, thank you, Raphael. As I keep saying, you guys help support the show. Like, share, subscribe. You can support this through PayPal, Patreon, Super Chats, like those other two gentlemen. Memberships, all of those things help allow the content to continue and to be what it is. Look, I would say this, just to close Ghislaine Maxwell out. I understand why he's doing this, if he does this. But what she says matters. Nothing at all. She can name 100 people that were Johns. Fair enough. Some could be Republicans, some could be Democrats. Fair enough, she could do that. And you get a lot of people in MAGA who would accept that. Fair enough. But the problem is, what Donald Trump is trying to inoculate himself from is him being on the list and her knowing that he is on that list and knowing his sins, knowing his crimes in regards to with children. The fact that he is effectively paying her off with a pardon, or that he is allowing her to go to a lesser prison camp, completely inoculates her capability of insulating Donald Trump for accusations of being a pedophile. So she can talk to the prosecutor all she wants. She can have those conversations. She can come out and name names. She could do that. But if Donald Trump's name is not on that list, it doesn't make people think that Donald Trump's name wasn't on that list, because she got paid off in order to name those names, with the specific point of view of many people like myself, that the payoff was to ensure that Trump's name was not one of the names that she bring up. So There is that. All right. I would like to play some chess. I would like to play some chess. We went through our stories. We ate our peas, ate our vegetables. I got to be honest with you. It is very late here. So I don't know what my powers are. Don't know what my powers are. It's not a bait switch because I did news for over an hour. In fact, what time is it? I did news for an hour and 15 minutes. Weekend update show. Weekend update show. Oh, by the way, if you have any questions, as we're playing, after I lose, I'll come back. After I lose, I'll come back. Just to talk to the audience. We can call it just chess and chat from this point on. But number is going to drop from 600 down to like 20. But look, if you have any political questions, if you have anything you want to talk about, super chats, I would definitely pay attention to those. I would also look at the chat to see what you guys are talking about. If we could just talk and hang out. Yeah, let's play some chess. Again, I do not know my powers right now. I don't know them. I don't know them. I could totally get my ass kicked. Hopefully that is not the case. What is going on? What is going on? Something's going on with the camera. Okay, we're back. StreamYard crash. StreamYard crash. Yeah, I'm back. I'm back. I'm back. I'm back. I'm back. I'm back. Let's play some chess. Let's play some chess. All right, let's see. Where's the right one? This.